Welcome back to Esports Weekly with Coca-Cola. Every Friday, we bring you essential news, top headlines, and in-depth discussion from the world of esports. On today's show, NBA team owners are getting into esports, we preview 2016 for console FPS and fighting games, and we sit down with Doa, Kelsey Moser, and Taylor Cocke to discuss what's coming up for the world of League of Legends next year. This is Esports Weekly with Coca-Cola. What's up, everyone? Let's take a look at the top esports news from last week. Modern Times Group, a Swedish entertainment company, recently acquired esports tournament organizer and production team DreamHack for about $28 million. This is in addition to their acquisition of esports organizations ESL and ESEA. With their recent acquisition, some in the community have voiced concerns about MTG forming a monopoly in the esports scene. Rod Slasher Breslau commented on Twitter that this is simply the kind of consolidation of leagues that he's expected to happen all along. Team Coast's North American League of Legends LCS slot has been purchased by an investment group that features two co-owners of the NBA team Sacramento Kings. The final sale price has not been announced, but it's rumored to be one of the biggest investments into esports by an outsider yet. Coast qualified for the LCS through the Challenger Series this year, but only one of their players, Conquan, will be remaining on the team. The rest are big-name players coming from other regions, mainly Korea. This has been controversial as Nick Allen points out on Twitter that 3/5 of the team that qualifies for LCS must be present in the first game of the season. This is pushing the question then, is it the team ownership or players that secure an LCS spot upon qualification? The entirety of the DK organization, which included top teams in Dota 2, League of Legends, and Heroes of the Storm, has disbanded. The Chinese organization took 4th place at last year's Dota 2 International. CEO Teng Andy Zhao stated that costs are rising extremely fast in esports, especially in regards to player salaries given their newfound popularity on streaming sites. He also pointed to the current market being, quote, malicious competition, going on to say that, quote, it's all about pride that is competing to see who has more money. Cloud9 has kicked carry player Ritsu from their Dota 2 squad less than 24 hours after being eliminated in the Frankfurt Major by Alliance. Ritsu was not removed due to his play. He was removed because he was sharing scrimmage data of the team Digital Chaos in order to keep them from succeeding at events. There are also other rumors of Ritsu stalking and harassing a player named Bisa, even threatening his sister's life. His teammate Brax responded shortly after his release went public that he had even recently made racist comments about the Paris attacks. Ritsu apologized for his behavior, stating that he has recently been trying to improve. His fellow players and his manager felt that this was too little too late. And of course, coming up this weekend, we're going to be at IEM San Jose to cover the League of Legends and Counter-Strike Global Offensive tournaments there. Get at us using the hashtag Esports Weekly on Twitter to let us know what you want us to cover. Hey everyone, I'm Kevin Naki and I'm joined once again by special guest host Alex Golden Boy Mendez. And Alex, I'm pitching you a softball this week. All
Thanks,
right,
man.
We're going to talk about console FPS esports going forward in 2016. And let's begin with a tournament that's underway right now, the Gears of War Pro League. So Gears has been trying to reestablish themselves back in the console FPS scene. We have 8 of the top teams that are competing over a season for $50,000 right now.
Yeah, it's actually some pretty exciting stuff and good news for the Gears of War community at large. Right now, though, Swarm is the #1 team in the league, sitting at 6-0. They look near unstoppable, Kevin. A dominant force. Really looking forward to seeing those guys continue throughout the season. But there's also Team Envious, formerly known as Fury. They're actually the winners of Hypefestation, but they ended up coming into the Pro League with a lot of hype. They got picked up by Envy, and a lot of people thought this team is going to destroy. Not the case, though. They're currently sitting at 2nd place in the league. Still doing very good, don't get me wrong. But the team that everyone is looking out for now is Onslaught. They ended up 3-0ing Envious in what was a slobber knocker matchup. I know you love that word.
I do.
Honestly,
it was
a great matchup without a doubt. And Pro League has been pretty entertaining.
So who's actually playing on these teams now? Or is this the old guard, the old Gears of War pros, or are these new players that are up and coming?
I would say it's a healthy mixture, right? You have some guys who were around in the Gears 1 and 2 days, like MBN, for example. They were actually around back in the old MLG days, and they're still competing to this day, right? But then you have a team like Vex, who they kind of established themselves more so in Gears 3. As far as like fresh faces, there are a couple, but nothing that stand out to me immediately. But overall, though, it's actually a healthy mix.
That's awesome. All right, so let's talk about another game that's trying to make a big comeback right now. That's the Halo franchise. So Halo 5 obviously just came out, and we found out that we have this awesome, huge Halo Championship Series, which is now going to be over $1.5 million in prizes. Already $500,000 has been crowdfunded through the sale of rec packs in the game.
Yep.
We know there's going to be 16 teams that are going to be competing for this giant prize pool next year. It looks amazing. So what do we got coming up for Halo, man?
Honestly, a lot of exciting stuff for Halo. I mean, one thing's for certain, this is I guess the biggest prize pool in the history of competitive Halo. So these players right now that are competing for it, they're just mind blown, right? And who knows, that prize pool can become even larger, right? So that's very exciting. But you know what, though, for the most part, all quiet is pretty much around the Halo community. They're just waiting for news, right? They're waiting for news. They want to know what's going on. But I think we can expect to see some of the familiar faces still competing. Evil Geniuses, Team Liquid, Optic Gaming, the newly christened Team Envious.
Right.
So Envy kind of get involved in a lot of different sports now, which is really cool. It's going to be an exciting season for sure.
So what do players think of Halo 5? Because in Halo 4 in the Reach days, there were some concerns from players saying this isn't the same Halo that we used to know. Mechanics have changed so dramatically. How are people taking to Halo 5?
Well, 343 actually went to great lengths to try and bring back classic arena gameplay. In doing so, I do feel like they actually accomplished that goal. The game plays fantastically. There are some, issues, like a couple players complaining about aiming tweaks, right? Things that like the casual player is not really going to see. But for the most part, it's actually fantastic, right? Everyone's really digging it. 343 believes in the assault rifle Magnum start versus the tried and true BR starts, and they've actually brought us some pretty fun gameplay and a lot of variety. You're starting to see a lot more weapons get picked up on the field, light rifles, carbines, whatever works for the situation. So it's very exciting stuff. Again, I'm going to keep using that term because it is exciting, especially for a console fan. I could not be more happy with the way things are going.
That's right. And you'll be even happier than with the last tournament series that we'll talk about. The $3 million Call of Duty World League, of course. We already know a few basic details about this. We know that Activision is starting up a brand new esports company. We know there's going to be multiple divisions that allow pro teams to compete, but yet teams that are up and coming to advance their way through the bracket make it into this big tournament series. So looks like a really cool set. What can we expect from Call of Duty?
Well, Kevin, just last week, as a matter of fact, Activision ended up announcing that the qualifiers for the CWL will be taking place, and they ended up throwing out a huge list of some of the, who's who in competitive Call of Duty, all the way from North America to Australia, right? You had names like Scumpy, Merc, Clayster, Swanee, Buzzo, like just so many great players from different regions, right? So it's very exciting stuff. And actually, one that was very interesting was the inclusion of a retired pro player, Nadeshot.
That's right. I was going to ask you about that.
He ended up getting a bid because he was competing for all the way until COD Champs, right? So he ended up making it that far to COD Champs. So it only made sense, right? That he would get that inclusion there. Whether or not he comes back to compete, that's a whole different, kind of ordeal. But Activision did announce, though, that there will be opportunities for players to actually qualify without being a pro player. So I really hope we get to see some up-and-coming talent make their name and get into CWL.
Well, there you have it, folks. Big news coming up from the world of console FPS esports. And now, of course, as we're winding down the year 2015, it's a good opportunity to look back at some of the best moments this year in esports. So we asked you all on Twitter what your favorite esports play of the year was. And honestly, guys, it wasn't even close. By far the most popular answer was Universe's Echo Slam in the Roshan Pit to win $6 million.
Ridiculous.
$6 million at the International 5 this year.
Yeah, it's just, when that play was incredible. I was actually watching it screaming at home. So, and I'm not even big on Dota. So there you go for that one. But you know what? We even had people write us saying that they don't even watch Dota, right? So similar to me, right, in that capacity. And they still said that was one of the best plays that they've ever seen. After @removed1234 said 6 million Echo Slam, it's not even a question. @Mr. Raymond Fish said, I follow lots of esports, not really a fan of Dota, but this play was incredible, +1.
Yeah, that's pretty much what everyone said back to us. Like, I don't even watch that much Dota, but this was the best. There were some other good responses, though. @RiskySE2 mentioned, might be Happy's Deagle Ace on Inferno, biggest major of the year, biggest play of the major. And that honestly was my personal just favorite play to watch this year. Yeah. CSGO has produced some amazing plays, and just flipping on Reddit one day and seeing a guy take down a team with just his pistol, it's pretty awesome.
Oh, for sure. That's why I love Counter-Strike. And finally, Mikey Kirk said, Nairo finally beating Zero in Smash 4. That was insanely hype. I could not believe that even happened. I thought Zero was going to go undefeated forever.
Well, it's pretty much what he was doing up to that point. Won 50-something matches in a row.
Oh, it's absurd. It's absurd. But, though, guys, thank you so much for sending in your favorite moments. Don't forget to hit us up at #esportsweekly, and you might see your comments on next week's show.
That's absolutely right. And now, let's move on to fighting games. So EVO is the biggest fighting game event each year, just by far. It is the biggest event. It is the most important event, and it's where everyone kind of tries out all their competitive fighting game titles. So there's been a new hype video that came out for EVO 2016, so we're officially in the swing of things. Yep. And Mr. Wizard, Joey Quaylar, who actually helps run the event, was on Twitter asking people what sort of games that they would like to see there. And there was maybe some controversy, right?
Yeah, well, actually, Smash has actually been huge at EVO, right? It's had a great presence, but there has been some controversy, right? Mr. Wizard actually asked the community if there could only be one Smash game at EVO, what would you want it to be? And after over 13,000 votes, Kevin, 13,000, the community overwhelmingly voted for 2.
Yeah.
So they wanted both games. They feel like both games should be there. I feel like Mr. Wizard probably just discovered Twitter polling and figured, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and use this anyway, because it is fun.
Yes,
right?
that's true.
It is fun. But he did follow up by asking fans to indicate that there should only be one Smash game. Which one would they want? Would it be Smash 4 or Melee?
Players responded strongly, to say the least. So Zero, who we were just talking about a few seconds ago, he's currently dominating Smash 4. He tweeted this picture, and this pretty much echoes what most people thought, that the Smash community was being pitted against each other. Now, Omni posted on Twitter that the correct response to Mr. Wizard's poll about which game should be there was to not respond because you're doing a disservice to the community if you don't say 2.
Who doesn't love a Twitter poll, though?
Of course, right?
I mean, obviously Mr. Wizard does. Speaking of, though, Mr. Wizard was a bit shocked by the reaction, saying that he was just looking for more data, right? Which is a fair thing. 13,000 people voted, so that makes a lot of sense. But there was no, miraculous intentions. There was no desire. It was just purely speculative, right? Which was whatever, right, at that point. But it is interesting to note that he did a similar poll for Street Fighter.
Yes.
So he did do one for Street Fighter. So it wasn't completely exclusive to Smash, asking the community if both Street Fighter 4 and the new upcoming Street Fighter 5 should be featured at EVO. Now, the Smash poll actually received 5,000 more votes than the Street Fighter one, and there was no real controversy from the Street Fighter community. But I do want to say that I think it could be because they expect it, right?
That's true.
Typically, you see multiple Street Fighter games in EVO, especially in the past.
Right.
So maybe that could be the reason why.
It's not like Street Fighter 2 is all of a sudden getting a brand new scene like Melee is to the Smash crowd or anything like that. And really, the Smash crowd sees their games as two completely different franchises, not so much in Street Fighter. And we actually reached out to Mr. Wizard to get a couple of comments about the situation, and he said that, quote, "It was never my intention to cause controversy, but if your community can't survive a spirited debate and what you would like to see at future events, your community isn't as strong as you might think." Strong words, but I think they're reasonable.
I don't know. I don't necessarily agree. I think it makes sense. I understand what he's trying to approach there with it. I still think he just discovered the joy of Twitter polling, which is, I'm going to run with that so the cows go home. But the Smash community almost started a small-scale war, which the Smash community can do. I happen to work with someone from Smash. Yes, I know what they are very capable of with these announcements. And Mr. Wizard, cautious against that sort of negativity, saying it will do nothing to push the community forward, right? So I definitely do understand that, and I see where that's coming from. He thinks that both Smash and Street Fighter V will dominate the fighting game community in 2016, and he's probably not wrong.
No, I think that's totally reasonable. They seem to be the two franchises that are going to be carrying the most momentum the next year at least. And we also did want to take a quick look at the fighting game community for the rest of 2015 and what you can look forward to a little bit in 2016. So there are two big events for the fighting game community in 2015. DreamHack Winter is going to feature Super Smash Bros. Melee and Street Fighter 4. And then, of course, we do have the Capcom Cup Finals, so $250,000 on the line. This will kind of be the last hurrah for Street Fighter 4.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm actually really pumped about that. Mike Ross, who was actually on Esports Weekly before, he's been working so hard on that. So kudos to him and everyone over there. But in 2016, everyone is looking forward to the first year of Street Fighter V competition.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, it's about to go down, people. This feels like vanilla Street Fighter 4 all over again. The hype is certainly there. But there are other major fighting games releasing that year too, right? So you have Tekken 7, Pokken Tournament, And there's some debate about the name. I've heard Pokken, I've heard multiple.
I have too, yeah.
Names on it. But that game, the Pokemon Fighter, it's coming. King of Fighters 14 as well, which I love King of Fighters. And one game that I actually really enjoyed playing, Rising Thunder.
Did you? Yeah.
I really enjoyed my time playing that game. I got rocked online, but you know what? That's a conversation for another day. But maybe even Tekken Cross Street Fighter? Maybe?
Yeah,
maybe that's
it could come out next year. We're still waiting for more details and everything like that, but it could hit.
I'm still, guys, if you hold your breath, you might be out of breath pretty soon.
That's true. That's true. Could be a while. And as always, guys, we do have a roundtable this week. And for this week's roundtable, we wanted to take a deeper look at the future of League of Legends. Now, I mean, LCS is the undisputed king of esports right now. It has the biggest viewership. It has the biggest, most stable circuit in the world right now. But there's been a ton of attention on some other games recently. Dota 2, Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, Hearthstone. These are all games that have been getting a lot of success lately. Yeah. So is LoL's position at the top of the esports pyramid still a sure thing? And what can we expect from that scene in 2016? So we had a few awesome guests on to talk with us. We had OGN commentator Eric Doa-Longquist and reporters Kelsey Moser and Taylor Cocke to talk about the future of LoL esports. So here's a look at some of the best discussion that we had. Now let's take a look at the international scene then. I do want to look at Worlds. We had a crushing performance from Korea again. You brought it up just a second ago, Eric, but I want to expand on it now. Why? Why? We can't have the same excuses we did before. Teams around the world have had the chance to move into team houses. They've had a chance to centralize. North American teams are all in Los Angeles. They can all talk to each other. They can all have the same environment. What's the excuse now?
Well, I mean, you can't even use Korean coaches anymore, really, right? Because we've got Korean coaches in other regions too. But it's a good point. I mean, at this point, NA and EU kind of have to be. They kind of have to put their money where their mouth is, right? I mean, we've got, and I still think the infrastructure in Korea is still better overall. I'm not saying that North America and EU are on that level completely, but it's close enough that I don't think that can be used as a big excuse anymore. It really, I mean, when you look at it now, and Lusboy, formerly of TSM, their support player, recently did a video blog that was then translated into English about, that included some stuff about that very thing. And it sounds like he's saying what I've heard and what a lot of us have heard from other players in NA and EU, that the dedication to practicing and refinement just isn't there like it is in Korea, and I think China to a certain extent too. I think it's a little bit better in China than NA and EU, I would say. So I think that's your question. That's the answer to your question. Is that the Korean players, whether they are more successfully forced to do that by their coaching staff or whether they want to do that themselves, whatever way this is happening, they're playing longer hours, they're playing harder, they're playing smarter, and because of this, they come to these tournaments more prepared for both executing the plan they plan to execute and adapting to things they didn't expect. And that's exactly what happened with the Worlds, especially on the adaptation front, because we had this patch that not a lot of teams have had a lot of pro player experience on, and Korea was able to figure it out pretty smoothly.
Yeah, they did a really good job, especially even with some of the weird hero bans and
it was awesome. Oh man,
yeah.
Worlds was great this year.
It was fun. I mean, do you guys agree with that? Largely that it's just the preparation.
I think so, and I think that this Worlds is going to be sort of a kick in the pants to a lot of the Western teams and the Chinese teams as well. Saying like you can't just sit back and expect to win your region and then do well at Worlds.
Sure.
There has to be this next step of full-blown preparation, and teams have started to do this a little bit with Korean boot camps, and doing some more hardcore boot camps at home. But they just don't have the same level of preparation that the Koreans have at all. It's pretty clear.
Is there anything to there not being a lot of interregional competition over the course of a league year? You have your All-Stars, you have off-season matches, you have Worlds, yes, but there's not a lot of opportunities for competitive teams who are in LCS in Europe to play against Korea, for example, or China. Is there anything there?
I mean, until Riot opens up the ability for teams from regions to compete in another region for a split, I don't think we're going to see any meaningful sort of interaction that way. I mean,
does that lower the quality of competition then? I mean, does that actually give a leg up to any region, or
on the international scale? Yeah. I suppose because Korea seems to be already so far ahead, it would give an advantage to Korea. But at the same time, I really do believe that NA and EU are capable of getting to that level. We just need players that are willing to do it, and I'm not saying I don't want to make it sound like I think all players in NA and EU are lazy. I think we've got some players.
Yeah.
I do want to say that because people will make that assumption, but just like they have for years in StarCraft 2. But anyway, I know people play hard in NA and EU. They do, but they don't. It seems like in general the region doesn't play hard enough, and I think also a big part of it is they don't play smart enough. One of the things is that Lustboy talked about in his blog was that the scrims end faster, the practice games, between pro teams end quicker, and that if something goes wrong, they're like, okay, GG, let's move on to the next one, which is bad. That's bad preparation,
right?
Because things aren't always going to go perfectly in a tournament match, and if they go badly, you can't just go, oh, GG, because and if you do that, you lose. You have to adapt, and so
something that Sir Scoots was talking about last week in regards to CS:GO, because we asked a similar question: why are Europeans dominating so much at CS:GO? And one of the points he brought up was that Americans play scrims to win. Like they will scrim against another team and they're playing it to win. They are not playing it to try a specific team comp. They're not doing it to try a specific strategy. They're playing to win. That's our show this week. Join us for a special episode of Esports Weekly with Coca-Cola next Wednesday. We'll be sitting down with Nick Allen and Hell Pockets to talk about what's coming up for esports in 2016. This weekend, we're going to be attending IEM San Jose and interviewing your favorite League of Legends and Counter-Strike global offensive players and personalities. As always, hit us up on Twitter with the hashtag Esports Weekly to let us know what you'd like to see. We'll catch you next time.